mais um episódio do Better Money Podcast com o seu anfitrião Bernardo Braga. Hoje a gente vai ter um episódio um pouquinho diferente, porque ele vai ser totalmente em inglês e legendado, porque o nosso convidado é o nosso primeiro convidado internacional, o Brian Estes. Brian, I'm going to start speaking English now. I already gave the disclaimer for everyone that this is going to be an English-based episode. And Brian is one of the producers of the amazing documentary called God Bless Bitcoin. And if you haven't watched it, I'm going to leave the link in the description below. You can always click there and go watch the documentary after this conversation here. Or maybe even before, like you can go there, watch the documentary, and then come back here because you're going to have a wonderful time. And it's one of the best pieces of content just to spread the orange pills around the world. So, Brian, thank you a lot for coming to Better Money. And how's it going?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Yeah, thanks. By the way, can you tell us a little bit about your story, your personal journey, and especially how Bitcoin changed your life and how did that come about? When did you first find out about Bitcoin and everything on that matter?
Yeah, I spent my first 20 years of my career in traditional finance as a professional investment advisor and institutional equity manager. And then in 2014, I learned about Bitcoin it was on CNBC. Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss were talking about it. It was $98 at the time. Coming from traditional finance, I thought it was a scam. I thought it was this, funny internet pump and dump scheme. But after I read the white paper and I dove into it, and it took me several hours to understand it. I had to read the white paper 3 times really before it clicked. But after it clicked, I just understood how all Bitcoin is software, and it's basically freedom technology that allows us to do financial transactions without the permission of a bank or a government, and it's peer-to-peer money. And when I understood that, I decided to devote the rest of my career to building and financing and mentoring blockchain companies. And I've been doing that for 11 years now.
So how's the journey been so far? Because I bet it was life-changing to first understand the whole money problem. I don't know if you were a gold bug before Bitcoin or if you have a full understanding of the fiat money problem and the debt-based system. But that's usually the first step, especially for us who come from a finance background, to fully understand Bitcoin, right? Because most of the fiat, the Wall Street guys and the people in traditional finance, they don't even have a clear understanding of how the system is rigged. Because they're winning within the rigged rules, right? So how was that for you?
Yeah, and I was one of those people. I didn't understand how the system was rigged either until I learned about Bitcoin. And so it's very strange, right? I have a degree from University of Illinois in economics. I did my study abroad at Cambridge University over in England, and the London School of Economics. I have an MBA from Washington University. And I didn't understand how the monetary system was rigged until 11 years ago when I learned about Bitcoin. And that's one reason we made the movie, is to help educate people about how they're getting, how they spend their time and their energy to create, money or currency. Let's call it currency. They create currency, and then the governments around the world print more and more currency, so it dilutes our time and our energy. It's theft and it's immoral, and Bitcoin solves that problem. And so we wanted to educate the world about Bitcoin, and thank you for doing the interview here in Brazil. We dubbed it in Portuguese because there's a huge population of the earth that speak Portuguese. We dubbed it in Arabic and Spanish and French and Russian and Mandarin and Hindi. We want this information out there. And so thank you for doing this interview.
No, of course. And I have to say, thank you for doing the documentary, because I don't think there is any kind of movie or any piece of content for that matter that's so well structured and so easy to understand for somebody who's just realizing right now. Just out of curiosity, did you have any classes on Austrian economics while at school or a graduate program? Because I come from an economics background as well. I did my undergrad here in Brazil, one of the best universities here. Then I did my MBA in Estes Business School in Barcelona, and no Austrian economics whatsoever. I wasn't exposed to Mises, Rothbard, anything until I finally figured it out in late 2016, early 2017, and then Bitcoin clicked immediately afterwards. So I think it's they do it on purpose, right? Like they don't expose the students to Austrian economics because it makes sense, because it's just the only school that actually take in consideration human action, and that's the whole point of Bitcoin. I think when you don't understand, you think economics is just a bunch of formulas that work in a lab in a vacuum, it doesn't make any sense for real life, and that's what the fiat monetary system is, just nonsense in real life. And as you said, it's complete theft. But did you have any Austrian economics at school or not?
No, not
Uh,
at all. Yeah. And so economics was taught to me as a science. Like there's
mhm.
one truth of economics, and that's false. I mean, there's economics is a philosophy, and there's different versions of economics out there, and Austrian is one of the versions, and we weren't taught that. We're taught Keynesian economics. John
Mhm.
Maynard Keynes was a Cambridge professor, and and governments have hijacked his economic philosophy to distort the monetary system and steal from us. And so I'm actually a guest lecturer at the Judge Business School at Cambridge, and we are in the process of restructuring Cambridge University's economic programs around Austrian and Keynesian and the different versions of economics that are out there, so that the students are exposed to all the different philosophies of economics so they can make an informed decision and they're not pigeonholed into one version, which is Keynesian economics.
That's gonna be huge for sure, and I think Cambridge is gonna become a factory of new libertarians and Bitcoiners. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
Cambridge has it's called the Center for Alternative Finance, and that's
Mhm.
where the regulators around the world go to be educated on Bitcoin and blockchain technology. So they taught over 1,600 regulators last year through their Center of Alternative Finance about Bitcoin and blockchain technology. And so Cambridge is the hub that needs to teach different versions of economic philosophy, so the regulators and the administrators around the world understand what Bitcoin is too.
That's interesting. I had no idea. By the way, regarding the documentary itself, how did the idea come about? Like, I know you kind of got a full understanding of the matter and you wanted to spread the message across the globe, but how did you, an economist and a finance major guy who worked in Wall Street or with finance your whole life, suddenly decided to build it and to create a documentary? How was that?
Yeah, I read a book 4 years ago. Sorry, read a book 4 years ago called "God Bless Bitcoin," or excuse me, "Thank God for Bitcoin." And
Hmm.
the "Thank God for Bitcoin" is the Christian view of how Christianity merges and intersects with Bitcoin philosophy.
Jimmy Song, right? Jimmy
Yeah,
Song and
Jimmy Song, yeah,
others.
yeah. And so Robert Breedlove, Jimmy Song, Gabe, there were 6 authors to that book.
Hmm.
And so I read that and I just got curious. I was like, well, if this is the Christian view, what's the Jewish view and what's the Muslim view and Hindu and Buddhist view of all this? So I just started exploring that, and just for my own curiosity, I wanted to see how these other religions intersect with Bitcoin philosophy, and and that was it. I was like, okay, I satisfied my curiosity, but then I had this internal voice inside of me saying, I need to tell the story. I need to get the story out. I need to spread the word about what I learned. And I've never written a book. I've never made a movie. I'm not a great communicator. And so I asked my wife, who's a teacher. She's an English teacher. She knows how to tell stories. She has a master's degree in writing. And I asked her, I was like, can you help me tell this story? And so I drafted her into helping me, and we hired an Emmy-nominated filmmaker to actually make the movie, put it all together. We went around the world. We interviewed 60 people. It was about 75 hours of content, and we whittled that down to an hour and a half. And that's what the movie is. It's the story that was inside of me that I wanted to tell.
Did you have any specific audience in mind when you were creating the whole storyline and producing the movie? Or was it a movie for basically everyone who would click play and listen to it?
Yeah, so the common denominator is that we wanted to make it easy to understand. So it's not technical. It doesn't talk about blockchain technology. It doesn't talk about the price of Bitcoin. It's not about making money in Bitcoin. What the movie is about is the moral and ethical aspects of Bitcoin based on sacred religious text from thousands of years ago, from all the major world religions. And so we tried to, consolidate what, 2,000 years of, how God wants us to live into like how Bitcoin helps us live that way. And that was the goal of the movie.
It's funny, I have some friends who are like Bitcoin OGs, and one of them is Jewish, and he says that maybe Satoshi Nakamoto is the prophet who's finally come. I don't know, the Messiah that they are waiting for ever since. That it's not Jesus Christ. He says it's Satoshi Nakamoto for sure. So
Yeah.
we'll see about.
We have Catholic priests in there, 2 Jewish rabbis, Muslim scholars, Hindu scholars. We have a wide assortment of religious views in the movie and how they all intersect with Bitcoin.
And Brian, during the filming, what was the biggest challenge you guys had in telling the story in a clear and impactful way? Did you have any specific one that comes to mind in terms of challenges?
I've never done this before. My wife and I have never made a movie before, so just the learning curve of how that's done and all the, I'm gonna call it minutia, all the little things that have to be tied together to make the story tight and make it informative and hopefully keep it entertaining, so people don't lose interest in it. It was just we've never done that before, and it just took a lot of time to do it, and that's what the surprising part was. I thought I could write a check, give it to the filmmaker, say this is what I want, and he would deliver me a movie based on that, and it wasn't that way at all. My wife and I, we were in there and watching every single second of every video, like time stamping what we want cut out and how we want it made. And the animations that are in the movie, there's numerous animations. Those were important too. So now we're working with the animators, making sure the vision that's up in here and in my heart is actually shown on the film.
Well, you pulled that off very well, I have to say. It's a very entertaining movie from the beginning to the end. So congrats on that. And what was the most difficult thing, like choosing the right stories and interviews, or kind of translating the complexity of the topic into something that was accessible, or anything else? Did you?
It was difficult. We interviewed, like I said, 60 people all over the world, and I've been in the blockchain industry for 11 years now, so a lot of these people in the movie are my friends, and so we have about 30 people in the movie. So that means we had about 30 people we didn't put in the movie, and I think that was really hard. That there are a number of my close friends that they're not in the movie, even though we interviewed them. But we were looking for specific content just around the ethical and the moral reasons about Bitcoin, and so a lot of the interviews that we didn't fit tightly with that view. So.
Do you have any specific names you can reveal to us of people who didn't turn up in the movie, or is it a secret?
Yeah, I'd rather not say, but.
Okay, no worries. And was there any specific moment where you thought the documentary might not turn out as you planned? And how did you kind of overcome that?
No, I think it turned out. The only thing that really changed at the very end was we were going to make the movie like a charge people to watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 3 weeks before we released the movie, my wife and I decided that that's not the right thing to do. The people that need to know this information are the people who don't have an extra $5 or $10 to pay for a movie. And so we decided to take that barrier, that paywall away, so that everybody has free access to the movie. So if you go to YouTube and you type in God Bless Bitcoin, it's there for free. And then what we did on top of that is that we've took, I think there were 28 of the interviews that we did, and we put them on Apple TV and Amazon Prime. So that's called God Bless Bitcoin Layer 2. So if you want to see the interviews that we did, you could get the movie and the interviews, but you have to pay for that. But if you want to just watch the 1.5 hour movie, that's free on YouTube.
So that was a creative way that you still managed to monetize, and your mission was full impact, right? Because the main primary goal here is to reach as many human brains as possible. So that was a good choice.
Yeah. And if you go to our website, godblessbitcoin.com, and click on the watch tab, all the movie versions are there in all the different languages that we've dubbed it into. And we've open sourced the movie, and we encourage people to download the movie and spread the word. If you have a website or you have a platform and you want to showcase the movie is open source. You could download the movie and host it on your website. Our goal is to get 1 billion people to watch the movie, and the more people that help us do that, the better.
You see, guys, so I'm going to leave the link here with the English version with Portuguese subtitles and the Portuguese dubbed version here in the show notes below. So go ahead and watch that afterwards. The documentary addresses issues like the collapse of the financial system, some impacts that inflation have, massive impact that they have over our purchasing power and the quality of our lives. And did you have any specific topic that wasn't a part of the plan that kind of unexpectedly got inserted within the documentary? Because as you were going through the production, you kind of figure out, okay, this is missing. We need to spread this message as well. Let's fit that inside. Or maybe somebody who you were interviewed kind of gave the feedback and you guys inserted that into the script.
Yeah. So when I wanted to focus on the moral and ethical aspects, I didn't know where that would lead at the beginning. And so after interviewing the rabbis and the Catholic priests and the Hindu scholars and the Muslim clerics, that kind of opened up the door to where this would lead. And the most important thing in the movie to me is the fact that in Ezekiel, it talks about how God commands us not to expropriate money from the people and use it to conduct war and violence and destruction. And governments are doing that all the time. They're stealing our money through inflation by printing money, and they're going out and conducting these unjust wars. And it says that directly in the Bible not to do that. And that's in the Old Testament. So Old Testament is for Jews, Muslims, and Christians. And so, so that was the most important part of the movie that I wanted to emphasize, is that, we have a direct command from God not to do that. Or we're doing that. And, Bitcoin fixes that problem, because if the government and the world were on a Bitcoin standard, you can't print more Bitcoin. And if you can't print more Bitcoin, you have to go back to the way wars used to be funded and either use your own gold or use your own Bitcoin to fund the war, or borrow the money from the citizens through a war bond. And if citizens don't loan the government the money for the war bond, then there's no more war. And so this is, I think Bitcoin is a way to create a more peaceful and harmonious world for all of humankind.
For sure. Definitely Bitcoin fixes this. By the way, did you you mentioned that was kind of the central message. Do you think that Bitcoin fixing the unnecessary wars and violence, the Ezekiel message, is the central and your favorite part of the movie, or is there a specific clip or a specific part of the documentary that was your favorite and is the most important one?
Yeah, another important one. The anti-war is very important to me, and another important part of the movie is, God says in Genesis, "Be fruitful and multiply," and there's different versions that depending on the Jewish religion or the Muslim. Like in the Muslim religion, it says, "Find a fertile woman, have many children." Depending on the Jewish, when you look at it, it says have 2 boys and 2 girls, or it just says that it says get married and have kids, right?
Yeah, multiply.
And so the way the world works today, when the governments print more money, younger families, younger couples, they can't afford to leave their parents and and find a spouse and have children. And if you look at the data shows that 50% of 18 to 31-year-olds are still living at home with their parents. It's at an all-time high. And when you drill down into it, it's because they can't afford to be on their own. And when you talk to young families that want to have children, they may have 1 children, but before we went off the gold standard in 1971, the average woman in the United States had 6 children. And so, now we're having less than 2 children per couple. And the reason I think it's causing that is because you can't afford it, because the money's broken. Mm-hmm. And so, we put that in the movie too. Like, if we were on a Bitcoin standard and the money was fixed, and we could have a more fruitful life, and by having more children, which fulfills God's wishes of be fruitful and multiply. So that's in the movie too.
Now, for sure, I know that very well. I'm 40 years old and I'm about to become a father for the first time.
Right.
Baby's gonna be born maybe by Saturday. I don't know. My wife is huge right now. She has a big belly, 9 months. I'm 40, she's 33. And for sure, once the baby is born and we're kind of getting used to the new routine, we're going to regret not having done that much earlier. And I know that when I reach an old age, I'm going to regret the fact that I'm not going to have some extra years with my granddaughters and grandsons because I took too long to have children. So yeah, it's a major scam that I think it's one of the most effective ways in which they're depopulating Earth by rigging the system, right? By rigging the money. So that's very unfair. And if you come to think about it, all the ways that the owners of the fiat system kind of spread human suffering through all the world in so many ways. If you go to WTF, happened 1971, you have many charts, including the fertility rates. But yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling if you come to think about like how much of human suffering is around us the entire time, especially in the global south, like here in Brazil, because people are just, they don't stand a chance. They're crushed by inflation every single day of their lives.
Right.
So,
yeah, one of my good friends in Bitcoin, he's been in Bitcoin for like 10 years, and he told me, and he wasn't in the movie, but he told me, he goes, he has 6 kids. And I remember he told me this a couple of years ago. He goes, if it wasn't for Bitcoin, I would only have 2 kids. Yeah. Because he's going to afford 6. So, yeah.
And what was so far the most striking reactions, the most memorable? Like somebody came up to you and thanked for the movie, and I don't know, any kind of the testimonials or any specific testimonials of how you impacted positively the life of others. Do you have any episodes you can share with us?
Yeah, this summer we're actually show the movie on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And Senator Lummis of Wyoming is sponsoring the viewing for us. And Senator Lummis is a big proponent of the movie. She watched it, she loved it. And so that was, to see support from a U.S. senator, and we're going to show the movie in the Capitol building so other senators and House representatives could watch the movie during session when they're all there. That's a blessing to us.
Awesome. Have you managed to reach people outside of the Bitcoin community, like any specific kind of communities that had nothing to do with Bitcoin that you found out were positively impacted, or not yet?
Not yet. No, we launched the movie about 6 months ago. We've been heads down and just bringing awareness to the movie. And no, I haven't had any of those interactions yet.
Cool. Any behind the scenes story, something funny, something remarkable that you can share with us so people kind of get a glimpse of the backstage?
Yeah. So, like I said, we traveled all over the world to do interviews. When we went to New York and interviewed Bobby Kennedy for the movie, it was just it was last minute. Like we got this call, like Bobby agreed to do the movie. He's gonna be in New York. You have 1 hour to do it. You have to be here at a certain time. And so we have a lot of film equipment, and we took our production team that is about a half an hour from here.
By the way, where are you based in the U.S.?
In Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we had
that was a long trip, a last minute trip.
Yeah, get up to New York, go to a hotel. We rented a hotel room, get everything set up. Do the it was just so I've never done anything like that before, but it was just you have to be flexible. If there's certain people you want to interview, you have to work on their schedule and make sure it gets done. And it was just it was interesting, but we got it done, and he's an important part of the movie.
Orlando, Florida is one of the biggest hubs for Brazilian people who kind of get tired of the communism here and want to escape to somewhere safer and better. So I have a lot of friends who live there. Some are in Fort Lauderdale, many are in Orlando. So
yeah, there is
you probably know a lot of them.
Yeah, community here in Orlando.
Nice. So Bobby Kennedy and so many other big names. Michael Saylor was there. How was that interviewing Saylor? Because I don't know of any other human being who has such an amazing ability to kind of like blow our minds with words. The way that he managed to express himself and explain how Bitcoin works from an engineer point of view, I think it's mind-boggling, and it's always like a rush of dopamine for me.
Yeah, we interviewed Michael when we were in LA at the Pacific Bitcoin Conference. And so we rented out a casita to interview him. And I had never heard him talk about religion and morality and ethics around Bitcoin before. And without being prepared, he didn't have the questions beforehand. And he went very deep into the religious philosophy that he has and how it's around Bitcoin. And we included a little bit of that in the movie. But the really deep conversation is in the interview. So, like I said, it costs money to watch that. But on Apple TV and Amazon Prime, we have Michael's interview and 27 other interviews on there. And his full, I think it's probably about a 45-minute interview. It is very interesting how he talks about the intersection of religion and Bitcoin.
Do you have any specific strategy to ensure that the documentary reaches more and more people, other than coming to podcasts in different parts of the world? But any specific cards up your sleeve that you want to put in the table so you can reach the 1 billion people across the globe?
Yeah, what I've come to find out, there's no secret sauce to this. It's all about just taking one step at a time. Taking one bite of the apple at a time to finish the apple. And so we do interviews like this. So thank you. And we hope that people that watch the movie take the initiative to tell their friends, and it keeps multiplying. So we want this to spread, and word of mouth is the best way to spread the information.
Let's shift back to your personal journey a little bit again. Was there any specific point in time that you wish you could go back and like any mistakes you regret in your Bitcoiner journey, or not much? Nothing comes to mind?
No, there's something very so I teach this, at the Judge Business School over in Cambridge, and I teach a lot of classes about Bitcoin and blockchain investing. So this is very important to understand, and it's a mistake I made 11 years ago. So when you make allocations to the blockchain or Bitcoin sector, when you're investing your money in the sector, you could invest in companies like Bitcoin miners or Coinbase or Criador Libre is a Bitcoin company in Brazil. You can invest in companies, or you could just invest in Bitcoin, the software, right? And so what I've learned is that investing in Bitcoin is better than investing in the companies. And when we built the internet 35 years ago, you couldn't own a piece of the internet software, right? Yeah. You couldn't own HTTP, right? The Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is the internet. So what you could own, though, is you could own the companies that built on top of the internet, right? You could own Facebook and Google and Netflix and the companies that built on top of that technology. So most of the value accrued to the companies. But with blockchain, it's upside down. So if you look at the value of the companies like Coinbase and Kraken and Mercado Libre, and you look at the value of the software like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Binance Smart Chain, 90% of the value is in the software and only 10% is in the companies. So it's better to own the software. And so that's something I tell people all the time. Don't invest in companies, Bitcoin companies. You just want to buy Bitcoin. You just want to own Bitcoin. And so that's what I tell people. It's just make it simple, buy Bitcoin, dollar cost average into it, and just let it accumulate. And don't try to trade it. It's very volatile. When it goes up a lot, you'll want to sell it. When it goes down a lot, you want to sell it. The best thing you do is never sell it. Just buy and hold and use it as a savings account for your future.
So that's kind of paradoxical in a way, right? Because if you want to kind of develop the ecosystem, you would need some capital, this availability for like funds and everybody else to invest in early stage startups and kind of foster the environment for new enterprises to come up. So how do we manage that, given the fact that it's more interesting financially speaking, financially wise, to just buy and hold Bitcoin, like send to self custody, to cold storage, and never think about it for 20 years, and you're going to be more well off than just if you buy shares in a VC fund or whatever. Like if you invest in a VC fund that invests in Bitcoin, we just say it's more kind of a philosophical, philanthropical stance of the people like Jeff Wolf and others who have VC funds to invest in Bitcoin-only companies?
Yeah, so when you look at those funds, and not anyone specific, but when you look at the blockchain funds that are out there, if they don't have the goal of outperforming Bitcoin, then why are you investing in them? And there are very few funds that outperform Bitcoin. So I think it's just better to buy Bitcoin. I run one of those funds. Off the chain capital, our goal is to outperform Bitcoin. The fund's been around for 8 years, and we've outperformed Bitcoin 6 years, and we've underperformed 2 years. And thankfully, since inception, we've outperformed. But it's I'm telling you from firsthand experience, it's very, very hard to outperform Bitcoin. And so if you can't outperform it, then you should just own Bitcoin.
Well, most of the fund managers across the globe can't even outperform their own benchmarks, which is the S&P or whatever. So I think you're very well off in being able to outperform Bitcoin 6 out of the 8 years. By the way, let's talk a little bit of MicroStrategy, because that sparked an idea here. One of the few interesting investment theses ever since I got to know Bitcoin was MicroStrategy, because of exactly that. That's a way for you to kind of get some leverage exposure to Bitcoin with some intelligence within the leverage, right? Like you don't take any liquidation risk or whatsoever. Like you can just take a ride with Michael Saylor as he builds this the Bitcoin accumulation machine, which we never know where it's gonna end. But are you a shareholder of MicroStrategy? How do you see this investment playing out? I always tell people here, our followers, and give the disclaimer that this is much more risky than just buying and holding Bitcoin in self custody. But where do you see the MicroStrategy playbook going in the next couple of years? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I have to give my disclaimer too. So we're an SEC registered investment advisor. So what I'm about to say is not investment advice.
Okay.
And so, and we may be buying MicroStrategy, may be selling it. So, be aware of that. So, but MicroStrategy is a large position in our portfolio. I am very bullish on the company. So, like what you just said, it's a leveraged way to gain more Bitcoin per share. So you buy a share of MicroStrategy, and what Michael Saylor is trying to do is get more Bitcoin per share in your hands. And so that's the whole goal of the company, is to accumulate more and more Bitcoin by borrowing money and issuing out shares so you get more Bitcoin per share. And we're very positive on that philosophy. And so the other thing too is that we're a value manager. We look for undervalued assets. MicroStrategy is one of the most undervalued companies in the world today. And no one really like 99.9% of the people don't understand what I just said. And so what I mean by that is the United States changed the accounting rules around Bitcoin for public companies just this past January. They're called GAAP accounting rules. They're generally accepted accounting principles. So those rules just changed. And so when MicroStrategy reports their first quarter earnings in late April, early May, the gain on their Bitcoin will be recorded as earnings per share. And so all of a sudden, MicroStrategy is going to look like it's trading for a price to earnings ratio of 2 to 3 times for a company that's growing at over 60% a year. And now all of a sudden, it's very, very undervalued. Normally for a company growing at 60% a year, you pay like 60 times earnings or 100 times earnings. And MicroStrategy is going to be valued at 2 to 3 times earnings. And when the institutional asset managers recognize that, they'll start buying more MicroStrategy and the stock will soar, in my opinion. So it's very, very undervalued right now.
I completely agree with that. And I'm looking forward to the day that they release the Q1 results, Q4 actually. And now they're going to start to have multiples similar to Mag 7 multiples. That's going to be a wild journey for us who hold MicroStrategy. Looking forward to that. Talking about looking forward to things, do you have any specific thoughts on the new administration today? By the way, guys, we're going to release this episode on the 27th, but today we're recording, it's the 20th of Jan, so it's inauguration day for Donald Trump. Brian, any thoughts on that? How do you see the administration? We had a big disappointment with the Trump and Melania shitcoins, but still a positive outlook, right?
Yeah, like you said, it's 11:46 a.m. right now. So President Trump gets sworn in what, 14 minutes? Yeah. So yeah, I think it's very positive. His administration that's coming, his Secretary of Treasury is very pro Bitcoin. His Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, runs his company, Cantor Fitzgerald, runs the treasury for Tether. Tether is the 4th largest cryptocurrency in the world. They have $130 billion worth of U.S. treasuries inside of Tether. And the new Commerce Secretary runs that for Tether through his Cantor Fitzgerald company. And so that's very positive. Bobby Kennedy is the new Health and Human Services.
He's a huge Bitcoiner, right? Huge proponent, but also a huge hodler, I think I've heard.
Yeah, it's public information that 90% of his net worth is in Bitcoin. J.D. Vance, the vice president, it's public record that half of his net worth is in Bitcoin. And so there's a very pro-Bitcoin administration coming in. Eric Trump, Donald Trump's son, was in Abu Dhabi about a month ago, gave a speech, and Eric Trump said that Bitcoin is better property than real estate. And so you have this real estate tycoon family saying Bitcoin is better than real estate. So President Trump and the Trump family now understand the value of Bitcoin, and they didn't really understand it during his first term. And so I expect very positive announcements to be coming out in the next 24 hours. So when your viewers watch this in a week, like I said, there's going to be, I think Bitcoin's going to be set all-time highs.
For sure. I hope so. But it's looking very bright. The future is bright for us Bitcoiners. And so if you're not a Bitcoiner yet, it's about time that you sit down and do your homework and understand why is that Bernardo and Brian and all these other brilliant minds and some other normal people like me are all the time talking about, and we ditched our careers, we stopped talking about traditional finance, we stopped our 9-to-5 jobs to dedicate our lives to creating a documentary, to creating content here on YouTube, because basically this fixes most of the problems. And even if it didn't fix the whole world, it's going to fix a lot of your problems, because you're getting impoverished every single day systematically by inflation. And unfortunately here, Brian, in Brazil, the future is not so bright. We'll see. We'll see if a miracle comes in the election in 2026 because of Trump. There's going to be a major shift in the geopolitical scenario. But we're suffering a lot with terrible economic decisions here by the federal government, and inflation's rising, unemployment, and a lot of problems. And so the future is not that bright for Brazilians at all, especially if you don't own any Bitcoin. So it's become a matter of life or death to actually stack sats here. So that's my mission.
Do you mind if I give a warning too?
Please do.
I just want to make sure your listeners understand there's Bitcoin and then there's everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you look at Bitcoin and you see the price at $100,000, or maybe it's $110,000 or $130,000 when your viewers listen to this, don't be scared off by that. Bitcoin's divisible by 100 million. So it goes out 8 decimal points. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. People can't afford a whole Bitcoin. But you can put $10 in it or $50 in it, and you can put $5 a week into it, and dollar cost average into it. Don't get sucked into buying like XRP because it's $3, or Dogecoin because it's 40 cents, or the Trump coin. I mean, those, just don't do that. Don't make that mistake. A lot of those protocols and those coins, those tokens, their eventual value is zero. And so don't try to trade those. Don't think I could buy, I'd rather buy a $3 XRP than a $100,000 Bitcoin. Like, don't think that way. It's a mistake I made 35 years ago when I looked at Berkshire Hathaway. So Berkshire Hathaway 35 years ago was like $4,000 a share. And I told the person I was talking to, I can't buy that. It's $4,000 a share. It's too expensive. And now Berkshire Hathaway is like, $400,000 a share. And so don't make the mistake I made 35 years ago and look at the price. What you need to look at is the value.
Yeah.
And the value of Bitcoin, in my opinion, is infinite. And the value of a lot of those other, you call them shit coins, or zero. And so don't invest your hard-earned money in something that is worth zero. Invest your money into something that is priceless, and that's Bitcoin.
It's a fun story. Today I was at the gym right before coming here to record, and one of the personal trainers there reached out, and so he was like, "You're the Bitcoin guy, right?" I said, "Yeah." By the way, this Trump coin, is it a good investment? And so I sat him down and gave him a little bit of a speech, of a maximalism speech, and he kind of understood. But I deal with that every single day, all across the internet. So many scams, so many scammers, and people don't do the research. They don't do the homework, so they fall prey to all these the scammers and all these shit coins and everything else. So you have to do your homework, you have to do your own research and understand what makes Bitcoin so revolutionary, so valuable. And it's the superior monetary properties, is the fact that it's better money. That's why I named this channel Better Money. What was I going to say? Regarding the Trump coin. So I tweeted this last night. I'm finding myself in a split mindset in which some of the time I'm thinking this is a major disappointment. This is going to lead to disaster in this administration. And another 50% of the time I'm thinking maybe Trump and his administration is just going to expose how much faster how all shitcoins are just scams and people are going to have a easier time understanding Bitcoin. Do you agree with that?
No, I think Trump's doing it to make some money. So, yeah, I think it's as simple as that. He thinks it's an easy way to create wealth.
It is.
When you look at the value of the Trump coin versus, his net worth, the majority of Trump's net worth now is in crypto because of the Trump coin. So, and Eric Trump in Abu Dhabi said about a month ago that the Trump administration wants to make, and he used a weird word. He called it domestic crypto tax-free. And so now we know what he meant, like the Trump coin. I would think that, there will be an announcement relatively soon that, domestic crypto like Trump coin will be tax-free. And I just hope that Bitcoin's included in that. But I think it's just as simple as a way he sees an opportunity to make money, and he made billions of dollars on doing that. And I'm telling your viewers that don't invest in it, because I think the end value 5 to 10 years from now is probably zero. But
for sure,
but it could go up a lot between now and then. So I'm not saying it's not going to go up a lot, because I do think it will go up a lot. But I just think the end value is zero. And why?
I mean, it's a club and you're not part of it, right? So like by the time you figure out and you want to join the boat, it's already too late most of the time. So your odds are against you. And if you want to lose money in a casino, just go to Las Vegas. It's going to be more fun. You can have drinks and you can watch, I don't know, some Cirque du Soleil spectacle. And it's going to be much more interesting. That's what I say to people all the time. But most of my viewers are already maxis. The shitcoiners don't like me, so I'm kind of too toxic for them.
Yeah, they don't like me either. So,
if you could go back in time, is there anything you would do different, not in your life, but with the production of the documentary itself, like any fine tuning that you find could be an improvement, or?
Yeah, there were a couple little edits that we could have made. My wife was pushing me to cut little small things out to make it, a little bit tighter, and I didn't want to do that. And we were button heads for a while, and looking back, I probably should have cut out those two little segments. They're like 1 minute each, just to tighten it up a little bit. But other than that, the movie is what I wanted the movie to be. So it's the story that was like I said, inside my head and inside my heart. So.
And do you see God Bless Bitcoin as a standalone project, or do you have like any plans for round 2 or any other documentaries, or even something bigger like a series or anything like that?
Yeah, hopefully I'm a one-hit wonder. So no, I have no plans to make another movie. It was like I said, it took a lot of time and dedication, and if I get the bug to, if I can't shut up the voice inside of me, I'll probably have to do another one. But right now I'm at peace with what we've done. So,
I mean, you still have a long way to go. Another few billion people you can reach with this message, which is a very, very important message. So thank you for creating that documentary, and we'll do our best to make sure that the most amount of people possible watch it and understand it and kind of free themselves from fiat slavery, which is,
Yeah,
I think,
Bernardo,
is the most important battle that we have in our generation, right?
yeah, you're right, 100% right. And Bernardo, thank you for helping spread the message. I really appreciate the time that you've given today to help spread this.
No, thank you. Any parting thoughts? Anything you want to leave as a message for people? Invite them to follow you on social media, your channels.
Yeah,
Feel free.
the only social media I do is Twitter. So
Mhm.
it's Brian Estes 32 is my Twitter handle, and yeah, the only departing message is help us help the world. If you could, if you agree with the message that's in the movie, if you could take a little bit of time and share the movie through your social media, and to help get the word out, that's what's most important.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. The house is yours. If you want to come back at any point, you have any updates, feel free. Just hit me a message and you're more than welcome to come back. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Obrigado a todo mundo pela audiência e eu vejo vocês até a próxima. Abraço.